All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Kymone Freeman. Kymone is an activist, a playwright, a radio host, and the program director at We Act Radio, all of which you can find at KymoneFreeman.com. You can also find him on Twitter at GorillArtist. Kymone, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your do-somethingness.
All right, man. So, Kymone, last week when it was announced that the grand jury was not going to charge Officer Darren Wilson for the killing of unarmed teenager Mike Brown, you were actually on the ground in Ferguson for We Act Radio. I guess my first thing I want to ask you is, tell us what it was like in those first moments when you heard that the grand jury was not going to be charging charging Darren Wilson.
Well, first, I wasn't in Ferguson the night the verdict was announced. I was there the following morning. We Act Radio did have a presence there the night of. Linda Tyree, one of the great authors, the new authors on the Facebook Poverty, and Peter Callahan were there. And when I arrived the next day, there was reports that actually, and this has been not translated in the mainstream media, that there was actually fire set by members of the National Guard or the militarized police. There was incendiary devices thrown in cars that caused fires, and remains to be seen if those fires did in fact burn down buildings. But there were reports, and there's even footage of incendiary devices being thrown by the military. So I wanted to make sure that was reported. And also the fact that Prosecutor McCullough should be charged with inciting this riot on the parts of the protesters because of the irregularities of a late night press conference announcing this, garnering the type of response that he knew it was going to get.
No, absolutely, yeah. The whole thing was just. I mean, the whole entire process was just unbelievably sick. And again, I don't have to tell you about just the entire racist policing system. I mean, we've been seeing it, for the history of the United States here. But again, I could not think of a worse way of possibly doing this. I mean, it really is like the worst possible way you could actually make this type of announcement. Absolutely,
and it was done deliberately to deflect as a red herring issue from, again, the irregularities of the grand jury. It was reported, the great reporting job from Lawrence O'Donnell that exposed the fact that the grand jury was hand-fed an unconstitutional statute that explicitly said that shooting fleeing suspects was legal. And that was struck down in 1985, but it was hand-fed to the grand jury and their instructions. And then when they went to deliberation, they retracted that statute and handed out the updated one, never pointing out the difference between the two. And then I quote, there was, and I don't know how you get on the grand jury not knowing the answer to this question, but then they asked a pointed question, does the Supreme Court law supersede Missouri state law? And the response was, don't worry about it.
Oh my God.
So with all that said, if this does not garner a federal charge, then with a black president and a black attorney general, then they're all culpable in all of this cover-up.
Yeah. Well, so you got in the day after the announcement. Tell me about some of the people who were living on the ground in Ferguson. What is there? I mean, obviously, it's infuriating. It's something that would just they shouldn't have any faith in the system, and there's no reason that the system has shown them to have any faith in it. Tell me about some of the people you talked to on the ground.
I don't see how anyone with good faith or intelligence can actually expect black people to have any faith in this system. I don't know how they can even say that with a straight face, from the president on down. But with that having been said, I think what's important to point out is that this is no longer a protest. This is an uprising. This is what I saw. I saw young people, and let me put this in historical context because a lot of people are not familiar with the backstory here. St. Louis area at one time was had one of the highest murder rates in the country, and there was one of the murder capitals in the country. Okay, when they was breaking murder rate records, there was no local outcry, state outcry, and federal outcry, and surely no compound effort to squash the violence then. But now you have a gang truce, you have a unified community by and large, and now here they come. Okay. So we need to make sure that's pointed out. I visit both of the murder sites of Mike Brown and also the gentleman that was killed in the Shaw area in St. Louis, who was shot 16 times, and some of those shots were in the back. That's still we're still waiting for the outcome of that investigation to come to a conclusion as well. And at the second murder site, I was greeted by young people who were guarding the. It's an African tradition to decorate the gravesite of a loved one, a lost loved one, because the people have been vandalizing, and it remains to be seen who has been doing that, but people have been vandalizing the grave sites that have been decorated, and they was guarding this, okay? And they was peacefully protesting, and as I was there, we had a team, or I should say a squad of jump out roll down on us, some of them driving Cadillac Escalades in an impoverished community, and I was stop and frisk, everyone there was stop and frisk. And I mean, what was that for? You know, we holding protest signs, but we've been the purpose of stop and frisk is to search for weapons. Okay, so this was just a continuous harassment. And then when I was at the gravesite of Mike Brown, I ran into a wonderful, and we have this interview that's going to be on We Act Radio's YouTube channel, Shuler, and also Color Change website, who sponsored our live stream there. We would be covering, I had an opportunity to talk to a public school teacher, a white public school teacher, and his two sons who also were public school teachers who came to show their respects. And they talked about how this was a deliberate action on the part in terms of the rioting, in terms of the news coverage. This was a deliberate action to promote, the stereotype of black people being violent, and that this officer was feared for his life, and this was a necessary hazard of being a police officer.